Welcome to another live stream, my friends. Bitcoin and the crypto market in general is looking a little bit better to me and honestly feeling the most bullish that I've felt in quite some time. Of course, there's still some things to be cautious of and structure to watch for, but as it stands, Bitcoin has shown some nice recent signs of strength for the midterm. And even more exciting, in my opinion, is what this could mean for the altcoin market. So I want to touch on that tonight as well. Um, I mean, could we finally end up getting the much anticipated and over promised altcoin season, or will this just be another failed attempt for the bulls? Guys, if you do appreciate these live streams and just me keeping a level head in these crazy market times and just looking at the charts for what they are, do me a favor and be sure to hit that like button for me. It goes a long way for the algos on such a new and small channel. So with that, guys, let's hop right into the 4-hour chart here, shall we? I've been talking about this my last couple of streams. I mentioned that a big sign, a big green light for me, honestly, for the price of Bitcoin right now is the fact that we got that higher trending buy signal and invalidated that lower sell signal on the MDX Trendmaster on the 4-hour. So it's not so much that I take every single signal with all too much weight. However, when they start trending in a certain direction and invalidating trends with those signals, that's what I take very seriously. So I love to see that with the price right now. So even if the price does end up falling down a little bit, it still looks fairly good to me on the 4-hour because, for one, we have this diagonal support here. You can see I have a couple touch points here. So if we end up dropping that far, at least there's some sort of potential support there. And as well, just where we ended up finding support from this recent buy signal, this is basically our last pivot there. So just more potential support there. And honestly, even going a little bit more micro than that and just looking for the very immediate short term here is just looking at this micro trend here, just as far as from where we bottomed here and started trending to the upside here. Just from right here, we have this little bit of a high, and here we do have this higher high. And as long as we stay above the lowest point between the two here, which would be approximately 89.2K, as long as Bitcoin can stay above that, I mean, the immediate 4-hour trend is still to the upside at this point. And the fact that we broke this lower sell signal rather than taking that as a sign of strength from the bears, I think it's actually looking quite likely that we could take a serious run at these resistance levels that I've been talking about. And honestly, at this point, I'm not even so sure that I want to short those levels anymore, just because of invalidating these signals with this indicator and just looking like we're kind of coiling up and forming possibly some sort of a giant ascending triangle here, which would be a nice potential reversal pattern, basically. And guys, on top of that, the weekly chart, which I want to touch on very quickly here, actually very soon here, because guys, just looking at the market structure for what it is, for those of you who are interested in seeing more examples of how I'm looking at market structure, some of my trade setups and strategies and so on, be sure to scan the QR code on the screen and sign up to BloFin to gain access to the current as well as future promotions through the no KYC exchange that I personally trade on. They're almost all the time, you guys, they have a wonderful promo for my followers, whether it's deposit or trading volume bonuses, whatever. So if that is something that you're interested in, be sure to scan the QR code on the screen. And as well, that gets you access to my free Telegram channel, you guys. So with that being said, just looking at the 4-hour for what it is, I mean, just with these signals, like I said, I think that it's just kind of pointing to more upside. Even if we end up seeing a little bit of a pullback, even the fact that we have this buy trend, now that we invalidated this lower sell signal, I would expect this buy trend, this pink line, to hold as very strong support as well and end up pushing the price to the upside. And even where it is right now, let's say we did get a little bit of a pullback right now, look where this pink support is of this indicator right here, and notice that structure that I just pointed out. If we pull a fib from there, notice that this indicator is lining up perfectly inside my STUBER fib there on this smaller range here, just on the micro trend here. So there's a lot of confluence for potential support, basically starting around 89.8K. and going down all the way to about 88.8K. Even below that, obviously, Bitcoin has done a decent job building that other support that I mentioned already. But guys, looking at the weekly chart, this is actually something that gets me quite excited, because you guys know that in the past, I have got excited about bearish divergences on the weekly chart with the RSI. And currently, we have a very nice bullish divergence, in my opinion, because we can see that with this indicator at the bottom here. Notice that the strength, the RSI, relative strength index, has climbed higher. Right now, the strength is higher than what we had when we were wicking up to these levels at this resistance level here. So the fact that the RSI has actually diverging above that, so it's showing that we actually have more strength right now as we're approaching those levels. So that may be an early sign that we're going to break that. And that is, although it's not really a massive low or high or any kind of structure, in my opinion, anyways, it is still a resistance level on the weekly chart. And if we end up breaking through that, it's very possible that we end up testing some other levels. For example, the underside of here, which would be the middle of the range for a bearish retest, or going higher and testing some of these other resistance levels. And guys, that's another thing to consider here is even though I'm feeling more bullish on the market, it's not so much that I'm one of those moon boys who thinks that Bitcoin's going to go absolutely parabolic from here. I don't necessarily think that that's the case, but I do think it's very possible that we get a very nice bounce here. And honestly, something else to consider, this is something that's been on my mind a lot recently, just even, well, more so the last few days. But I mentioned in my last stream that we were starting to see a lot of people mention that the market structure looked basically identical to last cycle, where we basically had this upward trending trend line. We lost that. We lost this horizontal level. We lost that here as well. Everything, even where we came down to our fibs here, everything's looking identical on that chart. And a lot of people are starting to call that out. And I know that I mentioned that, but as well back in the day. But the difference is I was talking about this when we were all the way up at 120, 125K, that we were looking very similar. And the fact that so many people are looking at that now, it's obviously becoming obvious. So I expect things to maybe play out a little bit different. So I was talking about this in previous streams, you guys, that I thought it was very possible we end up testing around 100K. I'm actually going to change these fibs back to the bullish ones here. Let me just pull a fib from this bottom here up to our highs. That's where we have our 886 touch point there. I was talking about if this ends up playing identical to last market cycle, that would basically be, we got to bounce to the 0.5 fib target, basically, right? And that would basically lead the price of Bitcoin to about 100,000 US dollars if we had the exact same thing play out. But just to throw it out there to make it a little bit different, where it could be very much similar behavior compared to last cycle, but be just different enough to really act as a perfect bull trap again if the market has decided it is time for a bigger bear market. I think it's very possible that rather than just hitting that first fib target, maybe we hit that second one as a proper fib, proper STUBER fib setup. It would line up with retesting the resistance up here. And as well, obviously that 214 level here, that target is basically the opposite 786, right? If I'm going to pull a fib from our all-time high at this time to where we have bottomed here, notice that that level is right at my 88 or my 786 resistance retest level, basically. And honestly, even from there, we could go a little bit higher, right? Maybe we get the same thing that we've already had twice with a macro swing fail, and we end up actually setting new all-time highs and then getting absolutely crushed into a full-on bear market. Or maybe, you know what, I'll give credit where credit is due. It's absolutely possible we just end up busting through that resistance. We continue staircasing higher, and the moon boys are right that we are going to go into a much bigger bull market. That's absolutely possible. But just looking at it for what it is right now, I'm just excited to not necessarily hit all-time highs, but just getting just the potential for getting back up to the top of our range would just be a huge opportunity there as well. And guys, what I'm even more excited about with that is if that kind of a scenario does happen, even if Bitcoin doesn't go to all-time highs, but we do get a nice relief rally here and just some healthy price action for whether it's a month or a couple months, whatever, that would be great for the altcoin market, especially if the Bitcoin dominance does end up dropping off a cliff here. That would be absolutely phenomenal for the altcoin market, in my opinion, to flourish. And a lot of altcoins are starting to look like they're getting a little bit of bottom formations showing up in the charts, and they're starting to break structure levels and that sort of thing. So it's very possible that we do see that start to happen. So as bearish as I've been in the past, I will give credit where credit is due. And we're starting to see some strength in the markets, which is getting me excited to not necessarily get full on moon boyish on Bitcoin, but especially when it comes to trading altcoins. And I will obviously be sharing a whole bunch of charts with altcoins moving forward as I'm looking at them. I know I was talking about Sui. Sui is a beautiful one that just another case, just like what I'm looking at with Bitcoin, you guys. The fact that we ended up breaking above that lower sell signal, that resistance there, and we just ending up holding that as a beautiful buy trend. And I pointed this out in the Telegram, you guys, because we had such a strong series of lower trending sell signals that when we ended up breaking that, that's where I'm starting to see that it's very possible that a lot of altcoins like this are starting to trend to the upside now. I was really hoping a lot of them were going to do the entire wick fill from the October 10th crash, but they filled a very large portion of it at the very least. I mean, something like this, let's see where we ended up finding bottom. We never even quite made it to the 786. Not that we have to. Or maybe we end up breaking this uptrend again, right? It's very possible that something spooks the market and we do just end up going and carrying on lower. But at least at this point, I'm seeing those signs of strength in the market and signs that we haven't seen in months, you guys. Like something like this with Sui. When's the last time that we had? This would have been basically the last time we had a higher buy signal, or a higher sell signal rather. And that was back in July, you guys. So it's been a very long time since several altcoins like this have had this much, just this good of a sign, bullish signal in the markets, in my opinion. This is very nice to see that kind of strength coming in on a lot of different assets. Also with Bitcoin, I mean, we can see that so far retail is still building these shorts to the upside. So as long as retail is willing to basically consider this suckers rally and continue building short positions, that would be great liquidity for the market makers to end up pushing this a little bit higher. And that at that point, you guys, as I'm talking about some of these resistance levels up here, I mean, can you imagine how excited everybody's going to be if we get that close to all-time highs again, and how everybody is going to think that we are in fact going parabolic for the rest of the year or whatever. I think that would be an excellent bull trap. And that's exactly how STUBER fibs work. It's just that usually I'm trading them on the 5 minute. So to see it on the weekly chart like this, that's why I'm leaving it up as a possibility, at least. Maybe it's not probable that we get back up there, or if we do, maybe we smash through. But just looking at it for how I would look at structure on a 5 minute, for example, this is a very valid setup that I would start looking for to be a seller. Basically, in this case, it would be around 116K, because that would be my 786 fib. That's where we'd start to get to my macro resistance. But that's where everyone will get excited. That's where everyone's going to get FOMO and start FOMOing into resistance. And if we end up seeing a crash from there, not that we have to, but if we do, people are going to cry about the market being manipulated and all sorts of stuff like that, as we usually do. But in reality, it's going to be because they are being buyers into resistance. So I just want to put those levels on your radar well in advance here, you guys. Like I was talking about with the possibility of the Bitcoin dominance dropping to the downside, at this point, we have mixed signals on the MDX Trendmaster on the daily. I love that we have a lower sell signal there, because this is, again, even though we do still have these higher trending buy signals, they are starting to look like they're rounding over. And the fact that we had this lower trending sell signal here, we have not had that on Bitcoin dominance for about 3 years, I believe it is. Yeah, this goes back to November of 2022. So really, speaking of those trends that haven't broken in a long time, just like why I'm bullish on some altcoins, I mean, with the Bitcoin dominance getting that kind of a trend breaker with this indicator, I would love to see that turn into something here. It is still early because, like I said, there is mixed signals. But if we end up losing this support level, basically, that I'm considering from this our most recent higher buy signal here, if we end up losing that, that's a very big sign of weakness for this chart, which is actually obviously weakness in the Bitcoin dominance is actually strength in the market as a whole, especially if Bitcoin can continue climbing to the upside or just being healthy in general, because that would basically show that the big money, just money flow in general is kind of moving towards those higher risk assets, and that money is flowing basically out of the safer assets into the higher risk assets. And that's where we can start to think about the idea of an actual altcoin season, the one that's been promised for the last year and a half. It's at least starting to look possible that altcoins could go for some sort of a run, even if it's short-lived. It's just that it's nice to see these signs of strength in the market, like I was talking about with Ethereum too recently, you guys. I mean, we ended up testing that 786 that I pointed out weeks ago at this point, and ended up getting a perfect bottom there. I don't know why I never played that. I'm not in a position based on that, but I know I was talking about it. And since then, we have printed higher sell signal, higher buy signal. So there is signs of strength there as far as the trend goes as well with Ethereum. And generally speaking, when Ethereum is doing well, that's just like with altcoin or Bitcoin dominance dropping. It's just a very healthy sign for the altcoin market. Solana still technically has a downtrend for me on the 4-hour, just because of how this structure is with this low and this lower low, confirming this as a lower high at about 147. That has not changed. However, I mean, I really just assume Solana will kind of do what the rest of the market does. Just, it just unfortunately never chopped around the same kind of structure that I like to consider. But realistically, looking at it for what it is, I assume that it's going to perform well with other altcoins as well, as long as, again, nothing spooks the market. Because obviously, if something spooks the market, and then some of the altcoins start dropping, Bitcoin starts dropping, I don't really expect miracles from any altcoin in particular. I think they would all just kind of do the same thing, right? So like I already mentioned, Sui's still looking great since the last couple of streams here, you guys. Still got a bit of a long position from when I pointed out in the Telegram about basically just about it breaking this little bit of structure here. And because this was actually somebody in my last stream had actually requested that I look at this, but I was kind of running out of time, so I shared it in the VIP later. So again, if you don't want to miss out on these extra examples of how I'm looking at structure and all that sort of stuff, you know what to do, guys. Scan the QR code, get in there. AVAX still looking great as well. This is another one I mentioned that we had the higher trending buy signal on the MDX Trendmaster, and since then obviously smashed through the sell signal, and it's just been trending to the upside ever since. Hype, I had also mentioned that although it was looking weaker, I assumed that it was going to play catch up and basically start trending to the upside, and ever since that, it just started this little pump here. Even though it's just a wick at this point, it did technically get above this level, which would be my lower sell signal here. So I really do have a feeling that Hype is going to basically do the same thing and end up starting to staircase a little bit higher. I wouldn't be surprised to see a new buy signal come on this indicator here and see this thing start trending to the upside a little bit as well. Bitcoin Cash, I've been talking about this one a little bit, although it is technically at resistance. I was mentioning that it's been testing this resistance level so much in the recent several swings. It's taken, over 3 stabs at this resistance at this point. So At this point, the fact that it's played out so many times already, I don't really want to bet against the bulls in this case. I wouldn't be surprised to see this resistance broken eventually. Troll, this is one that I mentioned in my last stream as well, you guys. Absolutely beautiful bounce off the Stuber fib here from the 886, because I mean, technically we got down to double bottom, but if you even just go from the middle of our support level there, just looking at this as a, why is it not letting me? There we go. Got a nice little quick 50% pump to the upside. So again, as always, guys, this is obviously higher risk trading when you're looking at meme coins and low cap coins and that sort of thing. But that's one of my degen plays on the go. So the range already played out. It already hit the 214 fib. But I'm obviously, this is more so one of my long-term holds, something that I've DCA'd into, hoping for another big pump like the one that I caught last time. But yeah, obviously high risk. Do your own research. As far as the lower time frames on Bitcoin, you guys, I was mentioning in the Discord before starting this stream that there is still potential weakness just on the shorter time frame, as we basically started since earlier today. Just the fact that we started once again losing higher buy signals, right? And since that, we've been printing lower buy signals and a lower sell signal. So at this point, we do still have a buy signal here. However, it is lower than the previous one, so it is betting against the trend right now. So I would really want to see the bulls be able to basically reclaim 91,000, basically 91.4K. It's actually about 91,450 or so. But basically, if the bulls can reclaim that, again, we would be invalidating a lower sell signal on my favorite indicator here. And that would be a sign of strength, in my opinion, where we would end up continuing to trend to the upside. Because like I said, I think the 4 hour looks great. It's just that I think a pullback a little bit is possible to some of those support levels I was talking about earlier. So we'll have to see what happens there. I hope you're all having a fantastic 2026 so far, you guys. I know it's only been a few days so far, but I hope the markets are being generous to you. I hope you are not getting crushed. I hope you are doing the crushing. Yes, and Brian, I could absolutely look at Supra and Monad for you. I have not looked at that for a little. That was on MEXC, I'm thinking. Hey, it was not on BloFin. Or was it? No, I think I must have been looking at this one. Anyways, how is this one looking weekly? Not looking great. Well, it looks like a massive falling wedge. Trendmaster still has very strong downward pressure on the daily, but let's start looking into some lower time frames. Let's get into the midterm, because obviously the shorter time frames are going to flip first. And so at least there is this. I have mixed feelings about this. For one, I like that we have this buy signal on the 4 hour. I like that we're still holding that pink line as support so far. I love that we broke out of this tight consolidation down here and started printing to the upside. So even if we end up seeing a retracement here, at least we have potential support if we end up dropping, just losing this signal basically. So at least there is support below us potentially. One thing that I don't really like is the fact that we did lose this little uptrend. Technically, barely, but technically did. So if we look for resistance, I mean, we already tested it once. You can see how we went perfectly to the 886 damn near. So even after losing that kind of microstructure, you can see how that was respected, even though it was a quick wick. Just looking at the range for what it is, you can see the Stuber resistance there did shut the price down. So the good news is that bearish play may have already played out, because it's obviously it would have hit the first target and the second target very quickly there. So it's possible that that downside move has already happened, but it's just worth mentioning that, I think, just because obviously since breaking, even though it's a micro level, then obviously this is a level of interest that we have this confirmed as a bearish pivot point, basically, just like we have down here our confirmed bullish pivot, basically. But not looking so bad. Like I said, I really like that it broke out of this real tight consolidation and looking like it's forming bigger ranges. If anything, that kind of looks to me like volatility is picking up to the upside. So I assume it would be very similar to whatever the rest of the market ends up doing. Monad, that was the one. Is that not on BloFin either? I'll look at it on Bing X here. So much like a lot of the other altcoins, I think this looks like it's staircasing nicely at this point. The fact that we obviously broke a micro downtrend, I would say even right about here, right? Because we, on this little consolidation here, we had low, lower, low, lower, high, we broke it. And ever since, we've just been kind of staircasing higher. So much like what some other altcoins are doing, and actually looking more aggressive about it, is it's nice to see that we are just crushing it to the upside. So basically at this point, it is confirming higher lows on the trend. So even if we see a bit of a pullback, you know, we at least we have some support below us, and that's on the 4 hours. So that is nice to see. That's the thing, like a lot of just the way structure has formed over the last few weeks or the last month or so on a lot of altcoins, including Bitcoin in that regards, is that the way structure has formed, at least a lot of the market structure has formed a lot of support below us. So at this point, you know, the bulls aren't looking so bad at this point. The fact that they're staircasing higher, and if they do fall back, that there should be some new support. Another insider collapse is always possible, my friend. Always possible. But again, even with that whole, as people call it, the insider collapse, let's say from October 10th, remember that we were expecting a big correction at those levels. And that's why we were shorting at 125K on Bitcoin. So yeah, the violence, I guess just how aggressively the selling off happened on altcoins and stuff. But to me, another big part of it is, well, maybe when those plunge protections kick in beneath the price, maybe that's actually manipulating the price. And when the exchanges aren't willing to step in and support the price anymore, then there's obviously no retail there, because if there was orders there, then they would obviously soak them up, right? So I have mixed feelings about that whole theory. But anyways, guys, I think that's about all I wanted to go over today. I do see a request for TAO. I will take a look at it and post it into the Telegram channel, you guys. As I mentioned, for those of you who are interested in seeing more examples of how I'm looking at market structure, how I'm looking at fibs, how I'm some of my favorite trade setups and strategies and that sort of thing, do yourselves a favor, scan the QR code on the screen. Like I said, my partners at BloFin are currently running this promo for another few days until January 7th. Just a bit of a deposit and trading bonus here for a few more days. And yeah, like I said, that also gets you access into my free private Telegram channel, just where I'm sharing way more examples of how I'm looking at market structure, how I'm not only entering positions, but managing my risk and that sort of stuff, you guys. So if that is something that interests you, you know what to do. With that being said, thank you all so much for being here with me once again. I appreciate each and every one of you guys being here. One more time, if you did appreciate this live stream and my level-headed take on the market, please do me a favor, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel if you have not. And with that, I'm out. Stay safe, my friends. Thank you once again. Peace out.